Welcome everyone to the Ask an Architect show. Here with me today, Stephen Parker. Really excited because Stephen has a significant background with AIAS, so we're excited to get into his background and kind of learn more about where he came from and where he is now. So Stephen, we'll learn more about your background as we tell your story, but real quick for the audience at home, give folks kind of the 10-second snapshot, who you are and what you're doing right now.
Architect, design advocate, husband, thanks Carrie, as well as I'm a design researcher right now actually, so that's a lot of fun.
Great, perfect. So let's step all the way back. Give us a snapshot of where you were at graduation. You have an undergrad from Clemson and a master's at Maryland, right?
Correct.
So when you were finishing up at Maryland, preparing to enter the profession full-time, what was your mindset? What background did you have up until that point? What were you thinking?
So I had actually been apprenticing since I was 15. I worked at a small firm, no more than a dozen people in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Great firm, lots of K through 12. And so I went through there throughout high school and undergrad. And so I had an idea that, you know, if I wanted to become an architect, I needed to diversify the types of projects I was working on, the types of firms I wanted to work for, so to have a better understanding of where my career could move forward. I did CA for a school district where everything went wrong, which is a good way to learn CA.
Sure.
Worked for a medium-sized firm in Bethesda, Maryland, multifamily, developer-driven, which was very fast but a lot of fun, as well as AECOM, which is the largest architecture, engineering, and construction firm in the world, doing healthcare. So I had that
So a lot of variety.
Yeah, and that to me is the way that I sort of sought out different experiences to see, you know, do I like this typology? Do I like this type of firm? Trying out different firm cultures is really important too. Make sure you have a good fit.
So when you got to graduation, what were you thinking in terms of next steps? Did you have a particular firm you were targeting, or were you kind of open-ended and looking for anything?
So there were a few firms that I was looking into. I had actually engaged a number of firms in DC throughout grad school. HKS with a design fellowship, Gensler with a CDO in grad school. And then I had been coordinating Smith Group through research for my thesis, as well as for a pro practice class, wrote a research paper on the firm. And so I had actually a pretty robust engagement with that firm, with this firm, before I even got into the interview room. So I knew two to three people interviewing me, which was really nice. So Smith Group for me was one thing that attracted me was the firm culture, as well as the types of projects, since I based my thesis research on it, things of that nature that felt like it was a good fit.
So what is that firm culture? When you say it was really attractive to you, you had obviously had a variety of experiences already, but what was unique about Smith Group that kind of made you lean toward this firm?
Yeah, so it was very familial. It felt like the teams really clicked together well. There was a lot of kind of equity in the sense that people felt like they could equally contribute to design, as well as one principal was telling me they like to detail what you design, so seeing through as much of the process as possible. So that way you have invested ownership in it. You're not just hopping on and off. Sometimes that's required, but I like the fact that it felt like a good fit, almost like anyone would feel like a good fit with any friend. There was just chemistry.
Yeah, I love that you're focusing on the people side of it, because I think a lot of times people look at portfolios or projects or reputation and not taking into account the people that make up a firm and how you fit into it. And that's important. Yeah, very important in terms of your happiness going forward and your long-term potential and growth.
Oh, yeah.
So once you got in here at Smith Group, what was your reaction? What were your first, few months like? What was your takeaway right away?
They did throw me in the deep end pretty quickly. I was working on a $40 million expansion to Indiana University's basketball arena, which is it's a very hollowed hall in terms of their history.
Sounds like a cool project.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. Very brutalist structure. It had actually been inspired by Saarinen's Dulles Airport. Very interesting structure. So yeah, threw me on the deep end of that. They gave me a lot of responsibility pretty quickly. It was a great team to work with. I mean, they gave me a lot of design opportunities along the way, as well as going down that route. It was a lot of sports projects for universities, but it was everything from the master plan to the trash can. So it was a great scale too.
Yeah, very cool. So you got in here and you've obviously been here for a while. You've stuck around. You've done a variety of things. I know that one of the unique aspects of your time here has been shifting between studios.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that in terms of how it happened, the benefits of it, and maybe some of the challenges along the way?
Yeah, so there's always lots of opportunities if you're sort of put it out there that you're interested in something. Some of the projects and learning were slowing down, and there was an opportunity in the workplace studio to do this tower in Clarendon, 2025 Clarendon, and it has this great crystalline structure. And the designer on it, Luis, who you actually had in your show.
Luis, yeah, he's been on Ask an Architect.
Yeah, so he was the designer on it. I was really interested in the team, and I sort of talked with him a good bit, and I decided I wanted to move forward with that. And that was a lot of fun because you had to figure out how you're going to make this really cool design structure actually get documented in such a way. So I had some fun with that. It was good design problems to solve in that regard.
So what next after that?
So what next after that was kind of a series of interior design, what we call repositioning projects. So repositioning is where you're the client of a building, the owner of a building, a large tenant may be leaving or something, and they want to refresh the building. They want to renovate it, they want to get it ready for the next set of tenants, get it leasable, and also get it up to par with their competitors. So repositioning a lot of buildings, that was a fun opportunity. I was in at least 1 or 2 design competitions with that. So on the fly, rendering and kind of design, you take on a space and you can sort of call it your own. And that way when you put together the design package for the competition, you're able to say, okay, this part was sort of mine, and the team sort of comes together with a holistic vision. And those were a lot of fun, but also a lot of interior design work where it's pretty fast paced, and that kind of thing.
So as you're shifting between all these different building types and project types, do you start to feel, I imagine there's a pro and a con. You could start to feel fragmented and like you're not specializing and you're not, snowballing your knowledge, or you're actually diversifying your own portfolio and taking pieces of what you learn in the different studios and becoming an even better, more well-rounded architect. What's your take on that?
So there's always this debate between a specialist and a journalist, and thankfully this firm, you're trying to line up where your interests are with that of the firm. And thankfully, they give you as many opportunities as you're willing to take on, right? They'll give you as much slack as you'd like. But great thing about it is they have a great firm culture here where, you shouldn't be afraid to ask questions. There's lots of really experienced people that you can sort of go to, and lots of mentors. I have lots of mentors at this firm, especially. We have every year we have a different mentoring sort of class goes through, and you get selected with different mentors along the way. And so I felt like the experience with the people and sort of the sort of familial culture of it all is really great. So that way, if you feel like, oh, well, I wanted to see what this kind of project is, you can sort of raise your hand, let it be known. And when that opportunity comes up, if the timing's right and things of that nature, then you can take advantage of it. You may feel like you're fragmenting, but it's also about finding where you fit. You need to figure out if a typology or a certain project team or a certain studio is a good fit for you. Sometimes that may take a while. But if you have an express interest and you just want to drill down very quickly and deeply into a studio or a project type, you just let that be known and eventually it will happen.
Yeah. To me, kind of what I'm gleaning from all this is that being at a larger firm like SmithGroupJJR, you have so many different opportunities in so many different places. You could grow within your own team, or you can switch teams, switch studios, and there's really an opportunity here to essentially design a career.
Yeah,
that's fair to say.
That's very much so. There are a number of folks. We have some fairly young principals that have done it kind of a few different ways. That's really inspiring to me. Some of them drilled down deeply and became specialists, and so that's actually my thesis work was based on one particular principal who did a lot of these traumatic brain injury and PTSD centers across the country.
Very cool. It's unique.
Yeah, very. And that typology has now been replicated across the country. That way, there's some great design research and medical planning done for that, and then you get to see that sort of replicated throughout the country. Others have had a very broad careers here. They've been here for a while, and they've worked in multiple different types of studios on very large signature projects, whether it's a Smithsonian or airports or stadiums or what have you. And so they're able to kind of get those diverse experiences because they can click into teams and just work really well. So that's really inspiring to me that that type of culture allows for it.
So let's talk about your inspiration. So what is next, or in terms of where you are right now in the firm and where you hope to be, or what the next step is, what is the next step for Stephen Parker?
Well, for right now, I'm doing actually pharmacy design guides for the VA. So I really like the VA and DoD stuff because I feel like I'm kind of serving that population really directly. My thesis work was in wounded warrior care.
Okay.
So there's a connection there, but I'm also doing some design research in AI and healthcare design.
Oh, very cool. So AI being AI, artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for architecture? When you say AI, what are we talking about?
So it's a very nebulous subject at times. There's some really exciting things going on. So in the healthcare realm, if you can think that or imagine that artificial intelligence is helping doctors get to better health outcomes for their patients. So you can have a patient that has X, Y, and Z ailments, and you can test that person's sort of BMI, their body mass index, their caloric intake, what other ailments they have compared to 10,000 other individuals with the same exact criteria. You can do predictive outcomes. And how's that impact space? You can imagine how that impacts the healthcare system and how a patient moves through it, but then how does that manifest itself in design and space? And that's a really interesting space for me right now to work in.
Huh, fascinating. It sounds like and there's opportunity there. That's a burgeoning field. You're kind of on the edge of technology and design, so there's potentially the field is wide open there. So Stephen, we have an audience of architecture students, many who are on the cusp of graduating because we're here in early May. What piece of advice would you give somebody who is on that cusp, who is about to walk that stage and start their career?
Well, I would say network as much as you can, but make that kind of engagement as positive and as fulfilling as possible. You don't want to just go to a lot of networking events. You want to start building relationships. You want to find ways to engage firms or individuals at firms that could be potential mentors whenever you can. So if you end up finding a firm that you like in terms of their work, well, you need to figure out about their firm culture, let's say. Go to an open house that they're hosting. Go to different events that their principals have an interest in. And in our firm, we have so many different specialties, and there are lots of folks with their own sort of passion projects. And so they're always going out into the world, speaking about it, presenting papers, things of that nature. So you can find a way to engage with them, especially if you show a similar interest in what they're interested in. Then you can start building a rapport. As well as just make sure you do your research behind the scenes as much as possible. If you have friends at these firms, start talking with them, because you want to make sure you go into that interview confident that it's going to be a good fit both ways.
Great advice. I think relationships are key in so many aspects of your career, whether it's architecture or advocacy or volunteering, or even if it's something else entirely. Relationships will carry through, and I always say relationships are proprietary, so that's something that you have that's added value that you bring everywhere you go. Stephen, one final fun question just to round it out, and again to add some last value to our audience. Can you give us one book recommendation, something that the folks out there can peruse next time they're on Amazon?
Oh, book recommendation.
Architecture, non-architecture, life, fun, entertainment.
So
what's on your table these days?
It's a book I read a while ago, The Millionaire Next Door.
The Millionaire Next Door. Okay.
Yeah, it to me was kind of really compelling because it gave you a different perspective on why are you trying to fulfill a monetary need in your career, right? So are you looking to make money, or are you looking to make money for your lifestyle or for your family? Trying to get down to the reason why you're doing what you're doing. I found that really interesting. It also gave me tons of tips and tricks and things of that nature, but it was also about attitude and mindset.
Awesome. The Millionaire Next Door. Well, thank you very much, Stephen. Pleasure having you on the show, and you now are the official first couple on Ask an Architect after Carrie Parker was on the show early on. So please check that episode out as well. And Stephen, hopefully we're around long enough to have you on again sometime. So thanks again, and thanks to you for watching the Ask an Architect show.